Now, this is probably one of the best articles that I've seen regarding the debt issue that's going on in Canada right now with the Canadian consumers, and just what's to come. And it paints a very clear picture as to what the circumstances are right now, why we're not really seeing any movement when it comes to bankruptcies or consumer proposals or anything of that nature, and why there's the expectation of, well, I mean, the headlines are always kind of designed to capture your attention with the word tsunami, but potentially, right? I mean, the thing is, we never know exactly what's going to happen. Anybody that does say they know for a fact what's going to happen, I mean, they're lying. Nobody knows. Things move up, down, sideways. The thing is, you just do your best to protect yourself from the downside, and position yourself so that you can take advantage of any upside that may occur. Now, going forward, what does that mean for you specifically? Well, I mean, what have you done to rearrange your debts? Are you in a position to now take advantage of anything that's coming up in the future? Maybe there's going to be lower prices for homes. Maybe, who knows, right? Maybe there's going to. I mean, right now we're in a really low rate environment. So, is it a good time to do a refinance? Is it a good time to consolidate some debt? You can crunch those numbers and you can just see, is there any opportunity to take advantage of the current circumstances, even though it's not an ideal world. You do your best with what you got, right? I mean, there are some things you can take advantage of right now. But that being said, let's get into the article. Like I said, it's one of better ones I've seen so far, just giving a fairly clear understanding of what we're currently facing. So Canadians are paying down debt during COVID-19, but a tsunami of bankruptcies could be coming. Debt loads are down and savings are up, but many reasons for concern beneath the surface. So the ratio of what Canadians owe versus their ability to pay it back went down in the first 3 months of COVID-19. But that unexpectedly brighter debt picture could be hiding a wave of bankruptcies waiting to emerge. And the reasoning is again very clear here. So Statistics Canada reported Friday that the debt to disposable income ratio fell to 158.2% in the 3 months between April and June, compared with a reading of 175.4% in the first 3 months of the year. That's a considerable decline. And that means that Canadian households owe $1.58 for every dollar they have to spend as of the end of June. That ratio peaked at 177% in 2017 and has held steady in the 170 range until the sudden drop this year. So that's interesting, right? So, I mean, we saw basically maintaining the same level for close to 3 years, but then all of a sudden, in the midst of a pandemic, we saw a drop in the debt to disposable income ratio. What's going on? So, while it's encouraging to think that Canadians are managing to pay down their debt loads during the pandemic, insolvency trustee Scott Theriault with Hoyes and Michaelos says that the number can mislead about what's happening beneath the surface. So, prior to the pandemic's start in March, consumer insolvencies have been growing at a double-digit pace since the start of 2019, as the system worked through a decade of debt fueled by a low interest rate that Terrio said people binged on and kicked the can down the road. And there is again another growing concern that that's really all we're doing is continuing to kick the can down the road. And the question is, what's going to be when does the music stop, and what's going to be the result of a higher interest rate environment? You know, what kind of malinvestments were produced due to a low interest rate environment? It's going to be yeah, tsunami might be the best word to describe it because it's not going to be pretty, and that's not even I mean, that's down the road. I mean, even in the short term, we're looking at some major issues. So then, like almost everything else, insolvencies came to a screeching halt starting in March. Part of that was because courts shut down, making it hard for debtors to take legal action to get their money back. But the massive wave of support programs rolled out by governments across the country seem to have had their designed effect of keeping people's heads above water too. So while the record number of layoffs made a dent in incomes, many people who were in trouble before COVID-19 got some relief simply because they weren't spending as much. I mean, anecdotally, I know some folks they told me that they've been able to save quite a bit of money because they're no longer traveling, everything's shut down. I mean, even just taking a look at their entertainment budget, it's been slashed. Um, Not to say that everybody's spending a ton of money on entertainment, but travel, there's no more going on the 407. No more doing anything. You're just working from home, right? Everything's paused, and yeah, so it's a lot. So there has been a lot of money being saved. But the massive wave of support programs rolled out by governments across the country seem to have, yeah, like the designed effect. So while the record number of layoffs made a dent in incomes, many people who were in trouble before COVID-19 got some relief simply because they weren't spending as much. As daycares shut down and parents moved to work from home en masse, all of a sudden people weren't paying $2,000 a month in daycare for 5 months. Crazy amount of money saved. I think I saw recently the average cost of a daycare per child is around $1,500 per month, again per child in the GTA or in Toronto more specifically. But I mean, being able to save that on a monthly basis, that really would improve the the disposable income anybody would have, right? An extra $1,500 per month. It's quite a bit of money. So, I mean, that would be after tax dollars being spent, right? So, in addition to government stimulus, roughly one out of every six homeowners with a mortgage applied for programs that banks offered to defer all or part of for up to 6 months this spring. But those programs are slated to end in the coming weeks, and those bills have to be paid. So the ones I'm worried about are the ones who had significant debt and then one of the spouses stopped working. He said they've taken advantage of deferrals and benefits, but that ride is going to end or gonna end. Savings are up sharply too. So all told, Canadians owed $2.3 trillion at the end of June, which consists of 1.5 trillion worth of mortgages and 779.4 billion dollars worth of consumer debt, such as credit cards. The StatsCan numbers show the debt picture is uneven across different income groups. The lowest 20% had a debt to income ratio of 281.7% at the end of 2019, meaning they owed almost $3 for every dollar they had to spend. Those in the top 20%, meanwhile, owed just $1.38 for every dollar of disposable income they had. Those imbalances are part of why Terrio predicts that insolvencies are going to come back with a vengeance in the coming months. Once the courts open, you will find out how much your bank loves you, he said. Delinquency tsunami. TD Bank economist Ksenia Bushmeniva, I do apologize, found reasons for optimism in their numbers. One of the major risks heading into this pandemic-induced recession was a high level of household indebtedness in Canada, which could greatly amplify the hit to the economy and slow the subsequent recovery. So far, it appears that consumer side of economy has held up better than might have been expected at the start of the crisis. Bushmaniva uh, was especially heartened by the fact that the debt service ratio, the amount of money spent on servicing debts, fell by its highest amount on record to 12.4% from 14.54%, largely because of lower rates. In addition, she noticed that the household savings rate, the percentage of disposable income that households managed to save, soared from 3.9% at the end of 2019 to 28.2% in June. a level she described as eye-popping. I mean, is this a new trend in terms of the new, I guess, the new spirit of Canada? Are we now becoming a nation of savers, right? Are we going from a nation of borrowers to a nation of savers? Is this pandemic? Is this is this has this modified our behavior, right, when it comes to borrowing money? That's a great question, right? Or is it just a matter of is us being forced to make changes because we no longer have access to the things that we used to spend money on? We couldn't go to the stores, we couldn't go out to eat, we couldn't do a lot of the things that would allow us to accumulate debt, the non-essentials, and even some of the essentials we couldn't necessarily participate in as regularly as we used to. I mean, things like daycare. I mean, now you could save $1,500 a month potentially, right? So that's, I mean, what do you do with that money? That money goes into your savings most likely because you don't even have anywhere else you can spend the money, right? So it now becomes a savings of $1,500 instead of an outlay of $1,500. So, but she is also worried about what could be coming down the pipeline. The unprecedented federal government income support programs and payment deferrals by financial institutions have been paramount for averting a delinquency tsunami and protecting household income, she said. However, more challenging times are likely ahead. Delinquencies and consumer insolvencies will likely begin to rise at the end of this year in 2021 and into 2021. And yeah, just based on everything that I'm seeing, it really does hinge on the longevity of these programs. If we figure out a way to manage uh, really to manage a gap, so manage this income gap that might exist for a lot of Canadians, if the ones that aren't able to go right back to work, then we may be able to smooth out that uh, potential new crisis on the horizon, right? And I think, rightly or wrongly, I think that is why we're hearing a lot of conversation around a guaranteed basic income, because I think they're really just trying to figure out what is the best way to avoid these dips in income. Now because we're going to see an end to CERB, we're going to see an end to a lot of these programs, but maybe they're trying to figure out a way to have something permanent in place, so that way we don't have to figure out how to just how to manage this a new crisis. So if something pops up, we're already going to have things in place so we can manage around it. I'm not saying whether it's a good or bad idea. I'm just saying that that's probably one of the reasons. I mean, that's going to be the next article I'm going to go through, but um, yeah, I think that's a fair, if you want to give them benefit of the doubt. I think that's a fair assumption as to why they would be taking a look at guaranteed basic income. Anyways, that's it for this segment. And like I said, the next segment will be about the guaranteed basic income that's being discussed. All right, take care.